Good evening and welcome along to Leeds United latest here on the West Yorkshire Football Show with myself, Stephen Brown, and joining me as ever to discuss everything to do with the Whites. It is Jason Booker. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, mate. All good?
All good, all good. Here we are chatting Leeds United again. Possibly. Surely there's nothing to talk about. Well, there is, and we're going to prove it. Yeah, clear your schedule, guys. Clear your schedules. We're going to get into it all. Jack Harrison coming back. Calvin Phillips potentially coming back. Links with Gus Hamer since Sheffield United didn't make it up to the Premier League. And we're also going to be talking about the betting odds and the fact that Leeds United are the bookies' favourites to go down with the other promoted teams as well. No real big surprise there, but we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about how can Leeds United buck the trend and how can they survive next year, and also looking at the prospects of the other promoted teams as well. As always, get a like in on the video, subscribe to the channel, get your comments in as well. What do you think about anything we are discussing tonight? Well, we're going to go back to the weekend. Obviously, we mentioned really feels like the football season has kind of finished now. The championship officially finished. Playoff final complete. And what a game it was. What an occasion. Obviously, we suffered a year ago losing in the playoff final. We know that feeling all too well. That was us 12 months ago, Jason, what the Sheffield United fans experienced. What did you make of the game? And I don't know about you, but I don't particularly like Sunderland as a football club. They've got a bit of history with Leeds, but I'm ever so glad that they've got promoted ahead of Sheffield United. I've got to say, because it's different. It's different.
Yeah, I mean, not just from that perspective for me. I can't stand Sheffield United. Like, they are, for me, my biggest rival. Like, I've said this for a number of years, because we've been in the Championship for so long now, as you know, it's pretty much a mainstay. I think it's something like, 13 or 15 years of the last 20 or so, something like that. 3 seasons in the Prem, 3 seasons in League One. But aside, it's all been the champ really since 2005 or 4. And I forget the exact dates now. So yeah, for me, Sheffield United have always been a bit of a sucker. They took Rob Hulse off us. They took Matt Kilgallen off us, you know, at the time where they were our kind of prized assets. You know, we then have the infamous kind of battle again with them in the Championship with Bielsa and Wilder, and how that obviously went down the first time around. And then when we both were in the Premier League, we actually got the better of that kind of battle. And it's been a for me, the rivalry since we kind of lost Manchester United every season. So, you know, I know Huddersfield see the same with us. Like, I just don't see it. Like, Huddersfield for me has always been an irritant more than a rivalry. That's how I see it. I see it like just an irritant, a bit like Bradford. Bradford used to kind of have a bit of a rivalry with us, and they're exactly the same. And I don't hold any kind of time for Bradford.
You can always tell an irritant. Can I just say the sign of an irritant is when the fans asterisks out like E in Leeds.
Yeah.
That's like the most tin pot thing you can ever see, really. So that's a good indicator.
They are tin pot. They're back where they belong. You know, they are back where they belong. In their box. 2 divisions below us. They can say
not in the same division. Yeah, exactly.
Not in the same division, yeah. So anyway, not enough of them. So Sheffield United, for me, it's nice. It's sweet to see them suffer. It's sweet to see Wilder suffer. Can't lie, it is. Like, he, for me, is just, I can't stomach him at all. I cannot stomach him at all. So, yeah, and the playoff final was a normal playoff, wasn't it? It was a normal playoff final. I said to you prior to the game, I thought it'd be 1-0 either way, and I know it ended up being 2-1, but it was that kind of game. It felt like it was going to be 1-0 to Sheffield United for the longest time. After they went 1-0 up, I thought that was it, we're done. Yeah. And it looked for the longest time as if that was going to be the case. And Sunderland had their moment, didn't they? They had their, you know, whether it a final moment or, like, you know, we had ours with Solomon. We had it with the Swansea goal, the Hernandez goal before that in the previous promotion. And they've had it, well, they've had it a few times, haven't they? They had it against Coventry with the last minute winner. They then had it again in this one. So, and fair play to them. I thought Sheffield United were by far the better team on the day. I thought some of the responses that you got in the TikTok were bizarre. Sunderland fans kind of coming at you for saying that Sheffield United were the better team. I mean, Sunderland were completely second best for 75 minutes, and then, you know, the last 15 minutes they played well, they deserved it, turned it around, and I'm buzzing for them, mate, and long may Sheffield United stay in the Championship.
Yeah, absolutely no. And this is the thing as well. I mean, you look at Ipswich last year, obviously spent a significant amount of time in League One and then have hauled themselves up to the Premier League. Sunderland, it's amazing, them going down to League One, not quite on the level of Leeds United going down to League One, but it was still a big shock when Sunderland went all the way down to League One. And they've rebuilt, haven't they? They've built on youth. Their chairman's only 28. I mean, it's just youth everywhere, and it certainly worked for them so far.
They're a big club around here. Like they are a big club. I think they kind of get tarnished with a little bit of a brush of like, and this is down to them, not us. But they are they disappear, don't they, a bit?
Yeah,
the fans do disappear a little bit when it's gone wrong. Like when they dropped out of the Premier League, there were a lot of kind of people voting with their feet. And I know we've had our period of time with that as well, but we've also had sellouts for year after year after year in the Championship as well when we believe in the project. Sunderland, regardless of that, even in the playoffs, there were empty seats, and they are a bit of a funny club when it comes to that, and they do create these odd rivalries as well, like they have got with us. Like I don't know, they are a weird feeling of a club. I can understand why Newcastle struggle with them so much, but fair play to them. We all saw the Sunderland till I die. The problems that they were involved in, the rebuilds that they tried to have in the Premier League, in the Championship, before then dropping down again, and then it took them, bit like Leeds, time to get out of League One, losing in playoffs and having the heartache of that before eventually getting through over the line. And they, since League 1 to now the Premier League, they've not really changed their strategy too much. The recruitment process has been youth. It's been trying to build for the future. It's been trying to build something within a style and a format, and they've progressed. And it was only a matter of time really before they did finish in the top 6 and challenge for the playoffs again. And they've done it, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing as well when you look at the squad cost. I think it's like 18 million to get Sunderland into the Premier League if you look at players signed, which is incredible, really. As far as Sheffield United go, they're in the same boat. Leeds were, 12 months ago, lost in the playoff final, facing a second year in the Championship. It's going to be fascinating to see. I mean, I won't really care. It'll just be kind of, viewing it from a distance and enjoying it, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with Wilder. Will he still be there, and what's going to happen with that club? Because it's hard. It's really hard. They could very easily, if they don't go up next season, all of a sudden, you're backtracking, aren't you? And before you know it, you're ending up like Norwich or, Stoke or, all those clubs that have kind of yo-yoed. If you don't take hold of your opportunity, you're going to suffer. And that's why it was so important again for Leeds to get promoted this season.
It is funny though, isn't it, how they are so similar to the situation that we found ourselves in 12 months ago, in that they, will feel a little bit aggrieved to not finish in the top 2. They'll probably be saying similar things to some of our fans were saying 12 months ago. Any normal regular Championship season that they got promoted on the points that they got promoted on, and God, fancy us being in the Championship when 2 teams finish on 100 points. That's what they'll be saying. These are the lines that they'll be saying. But the truth and the hard cold facts of what Sheffield United have put out this season is that they've not been good enough. No. Even though they finished on an incredibly high points total, they weren't good during the season. They weren't. They won a lot of games, 1-0 against the run of play. Don't get me wrong, you get the points that you deserve, but they finished exactly where they deserve to finish. And I think even over the course of the season, I would argue that Sunderland were the better team to watch, and they were probably the more difficult team for us to play on 2 different occasions. We played them both 4 times in total. We beat Sheffield United home and away. We should have beaten Sunderland home and away as well, given what happened up at the Stadium of Light. But the way that the games played out were very, very different, I thought. So I think it's a super, super interesting one for them now, because they're not going to be in the situation that we were in at the start of next season. I don't think that they will be able to keep hold of the quality that we ended up starting this season with. When we look at our team and we've still got the likes of Joe Rodon, Ethan Ampadu, Daniel James, Willie Nonto, Joe Perot, these players are still, well, as we've seen this season, elite Championship players. Whereas their elite Championship players, I look at Amodovic, the centre back, Gus Hamer, and Cooper. Likely all of them will be picked off. and then they're left with the rest, which are not good enough to win the division. You know what I mean? No. So I think it could be a really difficult season for them next season. Really, really difficult.
And we'll just be there above, looking down, going, there you go. See you later, Sheffield United. Yeah. Indeed.
For a season,
Mark, hi, boys. Hello, Mark. Thank you for coming along. Guys, if you watch along, please do smash a like on the video, get it shared out, get your comments in as well. So what's happening in the world of Leeds United? The season's coming to an end. You know, we're on to the European finals. It's really getting there, and that window, it's going to open 1st of June. It's tantalising. There's kind of 2 windows. It's a bit weird. There's a window open, and then it breaks for the Club World Championship.
Weird,
and then and then it kind of reopens again. So things are, we get the feeling things are going to really start to pick up. But news came through yesterday that I think the majority of Leeds United fans not thrilled about was Everton's announcement that they won't be having anything further to do with Jack Harrison. They're sending him on his merry way back to Leeds. And I mean, I've got to say, Jason, I was doing a little bit of studying into how Harrison's done at Everton. It does not make good reading, by the way. So 1 goal, 1 assist. This is for a winger, by the way. Premier League winner. 1 assist and 1 goal all season. An underwhelming finishing as well. So he had an XG for the season of 3.5, but only scored 1 goal. Not very good on the dribbling stats either. So only a 31% success rate when he was taking on players as well. I mean, we've talked about him before, and it's official. I think I was hoping against hope that he would sign for Everton. I was really hoping that, it feels almost like he's a Moyes type player, really, hard-working, crossers, all that kind of thing. But even Moyes is like, nope. And every time I've seen Jack Harrison play this season, I don't watch Everton every week. Every time I've seen him, he has looked, I mean, Jason, really, really poor. And if you look at what social media says, obviously social media not always the best gauge of everything, but it's a resounding fact that I don't think any Evertonian would want to sign Jack Harrison. And for us, from our point of view, we don't really want him back. The stats say it all. He fails the eye test. He fails the stats test. Just simply how he left the club as well, leaves that bitter taste in the mouth. And I don't want him anywhere near the club again. But what do you do? What do you do, Jason? Because I mean, looking at a kind of PSR aspect of it as well. Now his current book value is about 2.75 million. So it's a low book fee. So any kind of sale, if you could get even 5 million or 10 million, it's going to help. But it's a bit of a head scratcher because I just don't see many clubs banging the door down for him. And for me, if he was in our squad and we kept the same wingers we've got, he's like 5th choice.
Yeah,
he's absolutely. I'd even probably play Schmidt above him, for God's sake. It's just, for me, it's just no, absolutely not. And as Mark says here, what about his mother as well? We all remember the video, so God knows what Jack had been telling her as well behind closed doors.
That's come back to
reaction.
Well, it's come back to bite him on the arse big time, hasn't it, that? I'm going to prefix everything that I say now before I get into it with, I don't want Jack Harrison. I've made that really clear on the previous video that we discussed it in. I don't want him for several reasons.
Yeah.
The more prominent one is the fact that he can't just walk away for 2 years and then come back now that it suits. And some will fire back, well, what about Brendan Anderson? What about Max Verber? They both came back into the Championship and kind of stepped out onto that pitch and have earned, especially Brendan, have earned the right now to kind of have another opportunity from us. And I think, Brendan could have kicked and screamed last season and at the beginning of this season, and didn't. He just got his head down, got on with it, wanted to make the now some might say, well, he didn't have a choice. And you know what? He might not have done, because we weren't held over a gun anymore like we were the previous season with Brendan, whereas with Jack, he had the loan clause regardless of how long it was, as long as we was in the Championship. So I get that. However, he had to step back into the Championship. Jack Harrison's not going to have to do that. And I also can't look past the way that he just left. You know, I made the point to you the other day that Calvin Phillips, after a year at Ipswich, and I know we're going to get on to Calvin, we'll speak about him in a different light in a minute. This isn't about that. But Calvin Phillips left a really long Insta post about his 1 year on loan at Ipswich, how, you know, he had such a great time there, and you know, how Kieran McKenna had helped build him back up, and all these kind of points to say, you know, I hope the boys have a great season next season, and a real heartfelt kind of parting of ways. Jack Harrison, after 5 years at Leeds, just the post, I mean, it's etched in my brain.
Same.
Goodbye to LUFC. I'll keep an eye on your results. That was it. That was the whole line. It was so weird. And it just showed that he had no kind of time or respect for the fans. And, you know, I understand, by the way, that the club kind of hung him out to dry in January. We let him go down to Leicester. We told him we were going to have that move. And then right at the last second, we pulled him back. So I understand that it's not all one way, but that's different. You know, there should be some connection there to the fan base, in my opinion. You know, they're the people that, you know, cheer them on every week and give them the lifestyle that they enjoy. So I've had a real problem with the way that he left, and then, like I said, the things that have kind of come since. So, but I do see another side to this, in that if we were to be looking at signing Jack Harrison without our prior knowledge and history with him, we'd be saying he's an experienced Premier League player that's played over 200 Premier League games, and we would be probably looking at this as a fairly solid signing if it were on a free transfer.
Yeah.
Which is what it is. So I do understand the potential for him being reintegrated back into the squad from a PSR point of view. He's a Premier League player, Browner. He is. Like, that is difficult to kind of come to terms with, because we all know how hot and cold he can be. But there's a reason that Dyche liked him. There's a reason that Moyes has played him, because Moyes has played him pretty much all the way to the back end of the season. There's a reason that Bielsa liked him. There's a reason that Jesse Marsh, Sam Allardyce, Javi Gracia all played him in the Premier League as well. And in the 2 seasons that we didn't have Rafinha, the one season that we didn't have Rafinha, really, when we were looking at a man, especially once Rodrigo got injured, we looked at Jack Harrison to try and deliver. He was the player that we needed to really turn up. Now, sometimes he didn't, but at the back end of the relegation season, he was the only player, really, especially from a going forward perspective, that kept us in games. So I'm only playing devil's advocate. I don't want him, but I do think there is some credence to us talking about it.
Yeah, well, this is it, because it's not going to be as straightforward as just get rid. I mean, Gavin says here, saw some reports today that Everton may yet sign him $5 million his wages. Well, that's true, actually. Just because this announcement's come, you never know, do you? You know, it could turn around that, you know, they do end up going back in for him, because I don't know how, you know, what Everton's situation is going to be money wise either. So, you know, they might not be able to break the bank or go elsewhere. Tom, personally, I don't want Harrison back here at Elland Road, but we fans are fickle. If he plays and gets time and plays well, things may change. Just look at Nonta. Well, I mean, I can't deny that, to be honest. Skip, think like most things, the club will do what's best for PSR. If we can't sell him, then can see him staying. I hope he goes. Well, this is it. I mean, I agree. I think, you know, and it's funny when you're talking about how he left the club. I mean, he's got to be the only Bielsa boy that kind of leaves a bitter taste in the mouth, really. You know, someone who was such a prominent part, and who I thought, God, he's just getting better and better. You know, each year under Bielsa, he just seemed to be kind of getting to a level where he's improving. And then when I've watched him this season, I mean, he's just been absolutely terrible. Diggler here,
he has been poor this season.
Oh, it's been awful. Diggler, I thought Harrison was the worst Leeds player in that relegation year. Just goes to show you it's all about opinions. Don't want him back.
And the thing is with Harrison, he was hot and cold, but if you go and have a look at the statistics, they're the polar opposite. I think he had the highest G&A in that season that we got relegated. And I mean, if you're saying that it was the worst out of them players, I mean, bear in mind we had Rasmus Christensen, Mark Rocker, you know, and some real stinkers in that team. So I think to pick Jack Harrison out as the worst of the lot is apparently by our defence conceded nearly 100 goals or something daft. Like I think it's just time bias is changing that, and I don't like him either. I really don't like him, but I try to take the emotion out of it. You know, like he would have some qualities based on what we know of Jack that would facilitate a Premier League squad that's going to finish in the bottom 5 or 6. That's the likelihood is that we're going to finish in around that area of the division. So, you know, like I'll put it to you this way, right? If we could sell Nonto for 25 million, have insane PSR gains, sign Solomon, and we have James, Solomon, Ramazani, and Jack Harrison, and Jack Harrison was the 4th choice winger, how would you then feel about it? If you thought that Jack Harrison was going to come off the bench for 25 games this season, you wouldn't be upset about that. You wouldn't, Brown. You wouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. No,
you have to kind of look at this in the. I think Farke, if he wants him, and the fees that we're getting from potential other clubs aren't right, because again, at 27, 28 that he is now, is worth 10 million quid. Just given the fact that he's played so many Premier League games. Yeah. So you have to make sure that you get the value. I think it's a real balance. I keep wanting to say this because people will misread what I'm saying. I don't want him at all. I really, really don't want him at all. I'd much rather have the 4 wingers. I actually think if we sign Solomon, we don't need a winger. I think we are set to go with them 4, and then we need quality in the other areas of the pitch. But I can understand him why you would, it might make sense.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I think you raise a great point as well. If he was like that 4th option, and maybe even like left back, left wing back.
We've said it before, haven't we?
You know what I mean? Where you don't need to be as quiet as thing. What's bizarre with Harrison though is like, aren't you supposed to get more composure and kind of, as you get older, he kind of seems the opposite. We've watched kind of Dan James kind of improve his decision making, improve. That I know he's playing a division below, but with Harrison, there's just no improvement. It's staggering. It's staggering.
He's very limited. He's very, very limited. That's what it is, Harrison. He's just very limited. His delivery, I would say, is really good. I actually would say his left foot delivery, when he does whip a ball in, is very, very good. You got to have a look at Patrick Bamford's header against Sheffield United in the first Premier League season as an example. Like, he whips it from such an angle. Look at the goal at Newcastle away in that first season. He's got some unbelievable technique. He can run for days. He's not bad at carrying the ball, but he is very basic, limited, which is why he suits Sean Dyche so much. He's a Sean Dyche player because he gets the ball on his left foot and whips the ball in the box towards the target man. So, yeah, I think you're right. There's definitely been very little, if any, development there over his Premier League career for sure. I think he did improve Championship season 1 to 2, and then in the first year of the Premier League, I did think he stepped up well, but he had so much around him, didn't he, in that first season.
Yeah, exactly. Diggler, I honestly have no emotion in this. I just don't rate Harrison. Been saying it for years. And Skip with some insider information here. All went wrong for Harrison when he split up from his Spanish missus. Is that right? Did he split up with her?
I don't know.
Well, I have a bit more sympathy with him then, to be fair.
I mean, that'd make me go off the rails as well. So.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? Come on. Exactly. I'd just be in a corner crying, I think. So another kind of reunion that's kind of been rumoured for the last few, I would say days, but it's been there pretty much constant since it became clear he didn't really have a Man City future. That is Calvin Phillips, beloved Calvin Phillips, one of my favourite. I would probably put Calvin Phillips in. I'm not saying best, but in terms of favourite players, he's in that maybe top 5, top 10 of all time. Absolutely, love that Bielsa Phillips. Incredible. His personality. The fact that he was the first Leeds player that broke into an England team for 20 years as well, and just incredible. And then, we got a nice little fee for him, and it was like off you go on to bigger and better things, or so we thought. It's not quite worked out for him at Man City, and his confidence has been shot. He's had a poor loan at West Ham. I think the loan at Ipswich. I mean, there's a guy we had on the channel who does Ipswich fan TV stuff, and he's been complimentary about Phillips numerous occasions, but I think, it's not quite back at those levels. Rumours obviously heating up between him and Lee. It's an easy link for journalists to make. It's so kind of, obvious. In terms of where I stand on it, I think it's, do you go back to your ex? I don't think it really works often. I think the Phillips you see now is not that Bielsa Yorkshire Polo that we had a few years ago. I think that's kind of done. I think we've got better midfielders now. I think Ampadu, Tanaka, certainly I would place above him. I would be concerned if we were starting with Phillips in midfield in the Premier League. 100%. I think the wages would be a headache. He's on a massive wage, and for me, it's a no. And, if you'd have asked me a year ago or something, I'd been like all for it, because it's that sentiment, isn't it? He's a home boy, isn't he? Leeds home boy. But now, having watched him and the way it's panned out, the fact that, he's late 20s now, injury problems, massive wage, it's just a big no for me, Calvin Phillips. And I would be shocked if we did that, and I'd be worried if that was the direction of traffic in terms of the recruitment. But what say you, Mr. Booker?
I'm going to disagree on that bit. I think there's a very real possibility that this happens. I really do.
Really?
Now, if Ipswich were prepared to pay a chunk of his wage, then why wouldn't Leeds be, given the fact that we're going to be financially probably in a sounder place than Ipswich were to kind of cover that wage? And which tells me that it probably wasn't a lot. It would probably tell me we're about 15-20% maybe.
How long has he got left at Man City? Is it 2 years or something?
I don't know. I mean, it's been 2 years since he left. No, it'll have been 3 years since he left. So he's probably got 2 years left. I think he signed 5 years. So, what if they're prepared to just shift him on for 20% of his wage and we're paying 40 grand a week?
Yeah.
So I think Leeds would be invested as a potential in that. I completely agree with you on the other side of it, though, from the playing perspective. Yeah. I don't want to see him back just because I don't think he's now going to be at the level, which then makes you say by proxy that he's a championship level player again, which seems a bit harsh because anything lower than us right now is going to be championship, right? So it's a tough one because is he better than the championship? It's tough, isn't it? So I agree with you in that I think Ampadu's beyond him and has got the potential on his hands to now keep on stepping up. I think Tanaka the same. Then you're looking at the other midfield options in which we're hoping to purchase, and you would be hoping that they will be better than Calvin Phillips. And the other problem that comes with Calvin is he a complete system player? He never, ever has looked anywhere near the player that Bielsa brought him in to that squad as. A single pivot, number 4, in a 4-1-4-1 that does a sweeper role that looks for them long balls. We don't play like that. We don't play with spraying passes. He struggled under Jesse Marsh for the exact same reason. He looked, I suppose, okay in a double pivot in an England team that dominated under Southgate, but very, very different. And I do, where was Skip's comment? I'm just going to put that one up just quickly. Yeah, it's okay. I think it's the opposite of this. I think Calvin is so far inside his own head that his confidence issues are a real problem. And we would be kind of dicing with death as to whether he would, playing with fire a little bit as to whether he would be able to rediscover that form that he had under Bielsa. I think it was a perfect honeypot of perfect for Calvin under Bielsa, and he'll unlikely to ever find that again. You can't blame him for taking the City move. You just can't. Like, it's life changing, not just for him and his kids, but their kids and their kids and their kids. And he had the opportunity to go up and win the Premier League and the Championship while we got relegated, and the Champions League, while we got relegated. So you can't. I don't think you can knock him at all.
No.
And
Tommy, KP was so good for us under Bielsa, but I just can't see him getting anywhere near that form, and we could get a better bench player. Yeah, it's kind of a shame because, like you say, it was meant to be the cherry on top, wasn't it? The Man City move. It was supposed to be right. This is where he goes into another kind of level in his career. He's got the international recognition. He's done really well at Leeds, and then it was meant to be, that next thing, but. Hand on heart, being honest, probably just not good enough, really, to do it. And it's fascinating. I mean, it's another genius of Bielsa, isn't it? Because he was, his reputation before Bielsa joined the club was really on the floor, to be honest. A lot of fans would have been happy to see the back of him, let's be perfectly honest. And it's going to be fascinating. I don't know. I get what you're saying about the wages because we wouldn't need to pay full wage, if we're not signing him permanently or anything. I don't know. When I see KP now, I don't know what he's bringing to a team. It's so difficult.
He's a very specific player, Brownie, in my opinion. Like on Football Manager, when you've got like the green and orange dots, depending on position. He's his bright green in that DM position, and it's only got one role. The deep line playmaker. He's got no other, maybe a ball winning midfielder. He could be all right at that, but everything else he just can't do. He has to play in that kind of system and role, and we don't play like that now. No. So I think it's a great point that you make about him before Bielsa. I remember being really, really worried when we sold Ronaldo and we looked like we were going to go with KP in the midfield, especially then when he played him in the 4. And obviously Bielsa's a genius and he was spot on. And what do we know? But he was 4th or 5th choice midfielder really, and he was a box to box midfielder really, wasn't he? He weren't the player that we obviously then got to see. Ronaldo Vieira was that ball winning midfielder really with the deep playmaker kind of role. So it's funny, but that's like I said, the magic of Bielsa.
That's how it works out. Okay, so looking kind of at transfer rumours and other bits and pieces that we're hearing. Obviously, we just mentioned at the start of the show about Sheffield United not getting promoted. A few rumours gearing up about Gus Hamer, Everton and Leeds supposedly interested. Gus Hamer is an interesting one, isn't he? I mean, obviously, Coventry, fantastic, and then gets the Prem move. And I mean, what do you make of Gus Hamer potentially at Leeds? Is this the type of transfer you would like to see? It almost seems kind of too obvious in a way, in terms of, he's been linked for so long. Where does he fit in that kind of good enough for Premier League or too good for the Championship? I mean, what is it a deal to be done, do you think, Jess?
It's a funny one. It's more around the attitude and the fitness that would concern me. Like, he's a little bit overweight, like he's a little bit chunky. He's always injured or he's always getting knocks. Every time I watch Sheffield United, he's like he's got a hamstring pull and he's kind of carrying himself through games, and like, is he fully fit? Like, that gets mentioned by the commentary team like all the time. And then the attitude, like, who knows? And why did no Premiership team come in for him 12 months ago when Sheffield United got relegated? The team that came in for him were Leeds United in the Championship. So can he make that step up? I'm not sure, and he might end up being, because of the attitude and the fitness, one of them perennial up and down players that kind of is too good for the Championship but not good enough for the Premier League. I wouldn't be super gassed by it, I can't lie. I'd be a little bit more concerned than excited. Like, don't get me wrong, it'd have been brilliant to have in the Championship. I tend to sit on the side of, I think we can do slightly better, but I am very, very conscious of the fact that I remember where we're at. Like, just seeing Gavin's comment there about we need to up the quality, not go backwards. I think we need to be careful in how we look at that, because we are a Championship team that needs to improve to finish 17th. So when, again, and I bring this back to KP, playing devil's advocate, are you saying that Calvin Phillips is a Championship footballer? If you're saying that the quality needs to go up, not go down, not go backwards, where are you looking at these players in terms of their quality? Like, I would say that like Ben Mee and players like this would be good Premier League signings to keep us up. But I think that a lot of fans would look at that and be like, oh no, we need to be doing better than that. Like, but so what are you saying? Yeah. because we're not going to be able to go and attain them players that are going to get us, the next level. People always hat back to Rafinha and signing him when we came up. Don't get me wrong, some shrewd recruitment is going to be needed, and there is players out there that you can find like that, but they're not going to happen very often. Most of them are going to be quite obvious signings, because otherwise every promoted team would get it right every single time and they'd all stay up. You know what I mean? It don't work like that, does it? So
no, that's going to be fascinating, because I'm wondering, what kind of recruitment rabbits are they going to pull out the hat? Is there another out and acker that's going to happen where it's like ridiculously low fee, but the player's absolute quality? It's going to going to be interesting to see where they pitch it at, because obviously there's experienced players we're being linked with, and we're also getting we're getting the European links as well. We're getting kind of Nikola Kristovic, I think it is, at least 25-year-old Montenegrin forward. So he's bagged the goals for Leeds, kept them in the Serie A this season as well. I mean, that type of player, not widely known. I've never watched him before, but we know the 49ers are data driven. I do think one of the benefits we've got over Sheffield United and perhaps Burnley is there's a sporting kind of mindset there. With the 49ers and how they're going to recruit. The recruitment's been so good, but obviously when you get to the Premier League level, it's got to be even better, for a chance to survive. So it's going to be really interesting to see where those deals go, to be honest.
I'm super excited by the recruitment, the idea of the recruitment that we're going to make. I think we'll sign some really obvious ones, and I do look at the likes of the Curry or Ben Mee, these Premier League kind of seasoned players that will aid the squad, because we're going to be able to attract them. We are going to be able to attract them. And whereas Sheffield United and Burnley and Sunderland and these other teams, Leicester, Southampton, they might not have been able to because of the circumstances around their club, we will. And I do think that we'll tap into that European kind of unknown market here and there for the right players, and hopefully we get them right. I mean, it becomes even more important that you get them right. If Ramazani had not been, I know Ramazani didn't have a great season, but you can see the talent. If he didn't have a great season, it wouldn't have been the end of the world because of the other ones that we've got. Whereas if we go out and spend on a starting 11 player next season and they're not good enough, then we're going to have a big problem, because it'll be the difference between finishing 17th and 18th. You know what I mean? So I think it's a real tough nut to crack, and we need to make sure that we get it right with 80% of our recruitment. They need to be ready to play a part. In the first two.
Absolutely. Another one on the radar apparently is Daniel Peretz at Bayern Munich as well. So he moved from Maccabi Tel Aviv for about 5 million in 2023, but he struggled for game time. Obviously, Neuer and you big there, it's really hard to break through. But it's one of those. Does it end up like a Mark Rocker situation? Or I'm kind of scarred by that from Bayern Munich. Even though he wasn't a bad player, but it just wasn't right, was it?
Mark Rocker was the best out of the ones that didn't fit, in my opinion. I think you could see with Mark Rocker, if you put him in a system that suited him, he'd be a player. You could see it. His passing range, his game awareness and stuff were very good. But I think you're right. I think the facts are I know we've seen a little bit more of Keller because he's over here, but if you'd be happy with Keller, you'd have to be fairly content with Peretz being the right player as well. I know a bit about him from before Bayern Munich, but they don't sign bad players, and he's played first team football for them while being fleeting. So I think again, if the recruitment team have identified him as their number one man, and Daniel Parker's happy with it, I'd have confidence in that it'd be the right signing for Leeds. And them kind of players again are the ones where they could come in and potentially be an absolute profit dream, because you'd probably sign him for 5 million quid, and if it hits, he'd be worth 25-30 million within a season. You know what I mean? So it's one of them that could really fall into a nice way for us. So it's an interesting one. Hard for me to say whether he's better or worse than the other ones that we should be getting, that we've been linked with, because I don't know loads about him.
No, exactly. Did you see that Burnley, or those obligation to buy transfers have all hit?
Same for Sunderland as well.
About 40 million, Burnley.
Yeah.
I mean, Marcus Edwards, Jadon Anthony amongst them. I mean, That for me, I mean, I'd be really concerned if that was Leeds, where it was like Joe Rothwell. You know, he's definitely signing Joe Rothwell for $8 million. You know, I'd be really kind of like, because that's a chunk out of your Premier League.
You're spot on, mate. You're spot on. I mean, both of them, especially Burnley, have really kind of nailed their colours to the mast in terms of the transfers. And Jadon Anthony's proven that he's not good enough for the Premier League. Now, sure, he might have developed a little bit in the last 12 months and he might play better at the Premier League level, but you know that we're going to go out and sign somebody that's better than Jadon Anthony.
Yeah.
You know that we are. So straight away they're on the back foot, and we didn't do any of that with the loan situations that we had. I mean, maybe it'd have been beneficial if we had done with Manor Solomon, but you know, we didn't hamstring ourselves into that position with the likes of Joe Rothwell. And I think it's a really, really good point, because Sunderland have got the same with Elland Road, and there's another one, I can't remember who it was, but they have got it. They have got it with another one as well. So I think it's a great point where Burnley are concerned. I think Marcus Edwards is a really interesting one, because I think he'll probably hit it off in the Premier League. I think he'll probably do quite well, but Burnley are always going to be restricted in terms of what they can do with transfers, just because of their attraction to the club. Like, it's not being disrespectful to say that they just can't attract the same level of players at Premier League level that Leeds can. I think in the Championship, I think we're probably fishing in the same market or a similar market. In the Premier League, I just don't think it's the same.
No, it's a different prospect. And speaking of which, we're gonna get to the battle to survive, because that's what it's going to be. And I was looking through some articles today. I was kind of trying to find out what the general consensus is about the Premier League next season and the relegation battle, because you know it's the elephant in the room, isn't it? The last 2 seasons, the promoted teams have all been relegated immediately. And I was trying to look through, see what the journals are saying, and basically every article is, this is Mount Everest for these promoted teams. And I heard one guy, I think it was Daniel Storey on the Athletic podcast, and he was saying, remarkably, basically every team, kind of from even outside the relegation zone, all those teams have got like an eye on Europe. Like when you go down the list, like every team's thinking, if we put a run together, if we just do, but you know, nobody's thinking about the other way. You know, we're kind of past that now. That gap is so huge. You know, when you've got Man United and Tottenham, you know, Tottenham finishing 4th bottom, losing 22 games,
it's crazy, isn't it?
You know, and that kind of thing. You know, you realise the size of the task now. When it comes to Leeds, Burnley, and Sunderland, the general kind of thing that I'm picking up is that if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Leeds, just because exactly what you said there, Jason, is that appeal and the commerciality of it. I mean, I think our commercial income is still above about half the Premier League. You know, it's crazy. You know, we've seen today Wolves, you know, Aït-Nouri and Cunha, they look like they could be exiting the club. You know, that's going to be interesting to see what position that puts them in. There's more teams in Europe than ever, so there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be playing that Wednesday, Saturday, or Thursday, Sunday game. I mean, what's your take on it, Jason? I mean, when you kind of cast your mind to our survival prospects next season, I mean, everywhere you look, they're saying it's going to be the same story again. 3 teams come up, are going to go back down. But how are you feeling about that? I mean, where's your head at the moment? Is it kind of, this is going to be, I can't decide if we're going to be comfortable, you know, we're going to suddenly amaze everyone and finish 12th or something, or if we're going to be in, you know, one of those disgusting seasons that, like, you know, Southampton and Leicester have had this year.
I would be stunned if for 3 years in a row the 3 promoted sides all go back down again. I just would. I think that the 2 previous seasons are an outlier more than the norm. And I say that because I think the season that Luton went down, the teams were in such a mess. You know, we've gone and seen Luton have gone straight through. Reminder, they've gone straight through. So what the team that finished 18th got relegated from the Championship. That's how bad they were. You know, so, and you know, Leicester and Southampton have been seen to be in a bit of a basket because I mean, they did they come down with that? No, with Burnley and Sheffield United, wasn't it? Burnley and Sheffield United. Sorry. Say it again, sorry.
Yeah, no, you were right.
Yeah. So Burnley and Sheffield United came down with them. We've seen obviously the struggles that they had. I mean, they're both were in a bit of financial issues themselves in the season that they came down. And then Leicester and Southampton, obviously, they came down with us, and then have been relegated again on the back of the fact that they've got crazy management decisions, crazy ownership issues. Leicester are now going to get hit with big points deductions. Southampton, arguably one of the worst Premier League teams ever. You know what I mean? So while this gap is big and all the rest of it, I do think that the gap has been kind of psychologically been made to look worse than what it is by the landscape of the teams that have been involved. I really, really do believe that. And maybe I'm just trying to make myself feel better, but I do genuinely believe that. Bear in mind that the season before all three went straight back down for the first time, as in Luton, Burnley and Sheffield United, the season before that, all three teams weren't none of the promoted teams. All of the promoted sides survived that year. When Leeds, Leicester and Southampton went down, Leicester and Southampton were fairly established at that point. So you can't have it both ways. That were only the season before this kind of recent current started. So you're not telling me that it's changed that much in 2 years. Now, I understand that the Wolves, the Bournemouths, the Brentfords, the Brightons, the Fulhams, these teams that you would think would probably be entertaining a potential relegation have strengthened to a point now where they're not worrying about it. I just think that's because of how poor these bottom three teams have been. I really, really believe that Burnley and Leeds will make a decent fist of it. And I think even Sunderland could as well if they get the formula right. Regis Labree's a clever manager. They've got the system in place. They've got a strategy of the way that they're going to go. I think Sunderland will find it very, very difficult, but I still think they'll take more points than Southampton have. It's only a few years ago since we're saying, no, Norwich is so crap. They've finished one as the bottom three every year. And, what I'm trying to get at is what's changed. Most of the time over the history of the Premier League, the three promoted teams are going to struggle. And most of the time, two or one of them at least is going to go back down. That's just a landscape.
It's not meant to be easy, is it? It's not meant to be,
Brownie, if we played in dog and duck on a Sunday and got promoted from second division to top division, we'd experience the same thing too. Yeah. Because that's the way that the systems work. You know what I mean? So I am not getting myself in a tiz about it, because I really, really think that given the way that the recruitment has shown its time, Daniel Farke's set up, how dominant we were last season, I think we've got the remedies and the potential to gain enough points to stay up. And it only takes, hopefully, one is all we need of them teams that we're discussing to have one of them funky seasons. Bournemouth lose a lot of players, Wolves lose a lot of players, can't recruit in the right way, they get a management decision wrong, and before you know it, they're in the mire and they could go down. We've seen a situation in which Spurs have finished on 38 points this season. Man United finished on 42. They could easily have finished on another, less 10 if the teams at the bottom were more competitive. I mean, I worked it out the other day. I put it in the group. I don't know if you saw it, but the Premier League relegation battle was finished on the 16th of February. So Ipswich, who finished? No, Leicester finished 18th in the end, didn't they? On 26 points, I think it was. Spurs went past the 26-point mark on the 16th of February. So they could have not taken another point, Brownie, and they'd have still finished 17th in 3 and a bit months. That's mental. That's got nothing to do with this gap. That's just, in my opinion, just got everything to do with the fact that the three teams at the bottom they weren't equipped.
Do you know what? I think you're totally right. I think it's easy to look at a blanket and go, the last 2 years, promoted teams being relegated. That's how it's going to be now for the next 20 years or something. But when you look at the individual case, I always look at, Leicester getting rid of Steve Cooper, who, whatever you think about Steve Cooper, was getting them points. They weren't in the relegation zone when they sacked him. Yeah. You look at that, you look at Ipswich, and it was going to always be difficult for Ipswich. In League One 2 seasons, a year before, they'd just come up. It's crazy. It was always going to be super, super difficult. And Southampton were obviously, they had, someone in charge who was going to play that way of football regardless. And then they made a bizarre managerial appointment, I think you've got to look at those situations. I mean, it's like when Leeds went down from the Premier League, and it's amazing how a series of decisions, it's like dominoes, isn't it? It just all collapses and it becomes inevitable. And I think all it'll take is if, Leeds, Burnley can hang in there and really make it a fight at least. You will start to see what. I mean, West Ham have been useless this season, absolutely useless.
Yeah.
Wolves terrible for large portions. I even look at so, like you say, Bournemouth or Fulham. All it takes is for that to just drop off, and they can be in real danger. That's certainly what we're hoping for. And I do see us as a different outfit now. I really do. I see us, that recruitment ability. And I'm excited for it. And if anyone is going to do it, I would like to think. I've got a feeling, Burnley will make a good fist of it.
I think
I've got a real feeling Burnley got, and let's be honest, Scott Parker's got a better record than Daniel Farke in the Premier League. Obviously, you can argue he's had better resources. I mean, just on that point, Farke, you're on about his style of football from the Championship. How do you see that kind of progressing to the Premier League? What's that going to look like? Because we're not going to dominate possession, are we? Surely. I mean, what's going to happen? Is he going to have to change something? Can he change something? I mean, it's going to be fascinating, isn't it?
I think there'll have to be adaptations. I definitely think there'll have to be adaptations, and I think, I'm choosing to take what I've seen his time at Leeds rather than his time at Norwich, because the Norwich team, again, talking about being inequipped, was completely unequipped for Premier League football. And, he was honest enough to kind of say that. And I think this team will be equipped for it. And if he fails, he'll lose his job and it'll be on him. He'll get no defence from it. But we've seen over the 2 seasons at Championship level, his ability to be able to adapt and change the way that we play. Like, if fans can't see that from season 1 to season 2, then they don't understand what they're watching, because the style wasn't the same this season. It was better. The way that he's developed players like Joe Perreault, Somerville before that, Archie Gray, others within the system, Ampadu, Tanaka, the levels that he's got out of the likes of Joe Rodon, the way that we play with the wingers out, and the fullbacks scoring goals in the way, that they did. Archie Gray and Firpo, for that matter, never played the way that we did in season 1, the way that we did in season 2. Completely different kettle of fish. So I'm confident that he'll be able to do enough to get the points on the board that we need. Like, he won't be able to say that this side isn't Premier League ready. He won't, because the 49ers will make sure that it is. I don't think it's a mile off being competitive. I think this team as it is right now would go down, but I think it'd be competitive. I think it'd do a better job than what Leicester and Ipswich have done, and obviously Southampton. But I think he will have the resources in front of him when we kick a ball for the first game of the season. So yeah, I'm like I say, I'm excited by it. I'm not stressing. I'm not stressing by it.
No, like Gav says here, first 5 games so important, and it's interesting for Farke as well, because it's almost like he's kind of got to ground zero. He's got to he's got to par by getting and it's like, it's not with Bielsa when we came up and we were just behind him and everyone believed, and it was like, I think it's almost he's got to prove himself again, and I don't see any problem with that, and I think that's right, because he does have stuff to prove in the Premier League, and like you say, I don't think there's going to be any excuses about we couldn't do this, we didn't do that. And I think the 49ers are going to, they've already said they're going to push PSR to the max. I don't think there will be any excuses there. He's going to have to do the business. He's going to have to, do something, or changes will come in quickly. But I agree with you. I think this is just a glorious bit of time where it's like we're waiting for things to happen. We're waiting for transfers to happen. It feels great. So it's funny as well, because it's like, it always seems to happen where things come back round and bite people in the arse. You look at all the Ipswich fans and Sheffield United fans and Southampton, all these ones that were, clowning us 12 months ago. It's great to see how it changes. And it always happens, doesn't it? And hopefully, we're not going to be going the other way in 12 months' time.
I do think that the first 5 games points really, really important. Well, I think it's really interesting. I think that's more important for Farke than it is for us. Yeah. Like, I don't think our season will be dictated as to whether we're on 6 points, 5 points, 10 points, or no points after 5 games. But I think Farke's season will. I think if we're on, obviously the fixtures can make a massive difference to that. But if we get 5 tough games and it loses all 5 of them, I think regardless of who it'll be, I think the 49ers will already be looking at that. Whereas I don't think that will then be the be-all and end-all to our season, because, the Premier League, you lose a lot of games. You lose a lot of games, and we're going to have to face the fact that we might go 5 games with only 1 or 3 points or something like that. That's the way that it runs. So I think it's a really good point. But as I said, I think it's more important for Farke than it is for us.
See, I think the problem that we have as Leeds fans, as a fan base, is if we're losing week in, week out, and it becomes that kind of scrap, as a fan base, we're just not built for that.
No, we're not.
Burnley year after year. If Burnley are scrapping and fighting, they're on board with that. Us, nah. It's like, just wait and see. It'll be like, blow the whole thing up, get rid of the 49ers. It'll be absolutely wild. Skip us here. If we are to stay up, what team do you think will go down with Burnley and Sunderland? It's going to be tough. All teams have gotten better in 2 years. Yeah, I mean, if you're kind of taking for granted that Burnley and Sunderland are going down, for me, I'm obviously looking at Wolves if they lose it, Nuri and Cunha. I don't think, that they've kind of been on a downward spiral for a while. I think Everton have sorted themselves out. I can't see any problems with them with Moyes next season at the new stadium. I just think they're going to be absolutely fine. West Ham, it's going to be interesting to see there. I think they're struggling. And then, you're looking at, is it finally time that a Brentford or a Bournemouth just have a bit of a collapse and go the other way? That's kind of where I'd be looking, or maybe even Fulham or something get dragged into it. I don't know.
I can't remember the teams that stayed up from promotion to the Championship in the season that we went down, but they will have been saying the same things then about us, Leicester and Southampton. They would have been saying, these are Leicester and Southampton won't get dragged into it. Established teams, Leicester, previous Premier League champions, the battling. They were battling for Champions League spots the season before they got relegated under Brendan Rodgers, I think it was, or the season before that. You know what I mean? Like, so it doesn't take much for the wheels to kind of come off in behind the scenes, and a couple of the right people take the eye off the ball for these teams to end up finding themselves in these situations. Look at Manchester United and Spurs this year. You know what I mean? Like, if they'd have just been a little bit worse, they would have been in serious problem. Or if the teams at the bottom would have been a little bit better, I mean, Spurs would have got relegated in so many of the Premier League seasons this year. So many on the points total on 38. I mean, I think 42 would have even taken some down over the years. So it only takes, I mean, I think Man United, I know people don't want to wear it, but I think they're in a real problem, especially now that they've not got Europe. I think they are in so much trouble because they still can't get rid of the players that are causing them the biggest problems, because nobody now wants them. They've recruited so poorly that now the players that are coming through to replace them are not good enough. They are literally bottom 5 Premier League players. You know what I mean? And they've just not got enough, and they've not got the right characters to then deal with the pressure that playing for a club like that dictates. So I think they're in a real problem. Gavin's just mentioned Brentford, losing Mbeumo, and there'll be others. I think Wissa might find himself going out there. There's others as well. They've only got a certain amount of time before they're going to end up flirting in and around relegation again. And this season they've had a really good season, I think, actually. I think it's really impressive considering the fact that Tony left. But in previous years, they went like 9-10 games without winning games towards the back end of the season, and always kind of were just did enough to kind of stay away from it. I think that they could be in and around it. I always think that Forest will end up finding themselves in a situation where they'll probably be back in a relegation fight as well. I know they've been brilliant this year, but we've seen other teams like us be brilliant in one season, and then the wheels fall off and they kind of find their place back in the pecking order, because these teams get the best players picked off and then it relies on good recruitment again to replace them, and they don't always get it right.
Yeah, exactly. I'll throw a curveball for you as well. Aston Villa, so failed to get Champions League. Obviously, that's going to have a huge impact. They're going to have to sell players. It's remarkable. I think they're like 90% turnover to wages. It's crazy. So they're going to have to sell a lot of players. I could see a scenario where Emery ends up leaving or something. I think something wild like that's going to happen. Now, they have got Europa League football. Obviously, he's a specialist in the Europa League. So, he's probably looking at that as a big, big opportunity. But if they lose players and they're having to rebuild, if they have a poor start to the season, the pressure builds, I don't know. I don't think it's cut and dried for a club like that. That would be my kind of left field. Just keep an eye on that one, because that's a bit of a stressful situation, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I think they've just got so much quality that will end up being there again, regardless of the situation next season. They might have to sell one or two. Yeah. I think that they will be, probably. I think they'll probably fall into an 8th, 9th, 10th kind of position next season, given the fact that they're going to have the Europa League to contend with, and we know that the demands on I think there's only six or seven teams not playing Europe that were in the Premier League this season. Obviously, not including the 3 relegated and the 3 promoted. So I think 9 in total, but I think it was 6 the ones that are left. Fulham, Bournemouth, and a couple of others. Yeah, you know what I'm getting at. Yeah. Everton. So I think that will play a part for a lot of these teams. I think Forest and Palace especially will feel that, because the squad depths are not going to usually be big enough to contend with all of the football. I think Palace especially. I think Palace will be okay because they just are, aren't they? They've just got that kind of
Glasgow as well.
Yeah, they've just got something about them of Palace. And I mean, I love watching them. They're a really good side to watch now. So yeah, I don't know if it's just me being wishful thinking, but I really, really think that Man United are going to be in and around it. I really, really do. Like, I can't see a world in which they improve enough to not be within and around the equation. I think, like they've signed Cunha as an example. I think he's a top player, but there were a reason Madrid moved him on, Atletico, that is. There's a reason that he's been knocking around at Wolves for the last 3 years.
Yeah,
he's also not a striker that then suits the system in which they play, in my opinion. I actually think he's a better 10 than he is a 9. And they kind of hang in the hats on this being a good signing, because they can't go and spend loads and loads of money. They've got PSR issues themselves. So, and then I look at the rest of the squad and I just think, where is your quality? They've basically relied on Amad Diallo this year, who really is a top-end championship player. He's like a bottom-end Premier League player.
It's wild, isn't it? I mean, it almost feels like, can it go that extra bit of relegation? I mean, it would be amazing. I agree though. I think they're in. I mean, it's got to be the biggest mess in world football as Manchester United. I mean, it's staggering how far they've fallen, and the mess of recruitment. I mean, you won't see a bigger mess than what they've assembled. There's no confidence.
They don't apply football logic to it, Brownie. That's what it is. You strip away the name, strip away the attendance, and look at the squad. Look at the manager. If you were to put all of them into Leicester or Ipswich or whoever in and around that area of the division, you would be saying they are a serious contender for relegation. You would, I promise you. It's like people automatically apply 10 or 15 points to them because they're Manchester United and they'll be safe. That's what it's like. And I do understand it, because people can't live almost in a world in which they would potentially go down. They've been relegated before. I know history, I know the times have changed, but they have. And big teams have been relegated from the Premier League as well. Leeds, Newcastle, Villa. Some of these teams, Villa were challenging for in and around Europe, Champions League and the Premier League under Martin O'Neill, and then got relegated a few years later. Newcastle, same. Under Keegan, they were one of the Premier League big boys and then found themselves in the Championship on 2 separate occasions. Yeah. So why are we in this world in which, like, Manchester United, given the mess that they're in, couldn't find themselves in a relegation battle? I really, really believe it. I really do. I hope I'm right. I hope I can talk into existence.
Blaze. It feels like kind of football is healing a little bit as well, doesn't it? You've had so many underdog stories this season and different cup winners. That would just be the cherry on top when Man United relegated. We can hope, certainly. Good stuff. All right. Well, we'll leave it there tonight. That's the latest episode of Leeds United. Latest on the West Yorkshire Football Show with myself, Stephen Brown, and Jason Booker. Jason, thank you very much, mate.
Thank you, mate.
If you've watched along, thank you very much. If you're watching this again later, please do get a like on the video, get a comment in, and also subscribe to the channel as well. We've got a couple of bits going on at the minute. We're all over socials as well. So we've got our Facebook page, we've got our TikTok page as well. So get on there. Our very own Dave Foy, Mr. Halifax Town, giving us his reaction to Chris Millington leaving the Shaman there as well. Check out what Dave had to say on that. We're going to have the other boys on throughout the week as well, so do stay tuned to that. But we will be back very soon with another episode of Leeds United Latest. You never know, Jace. We could be back with a signing very soon.
You never know. 1st of June's not far away.
Yeah, exactly. Here we go. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.